Okay, so yesterday we were looking at Pythagorean theorem and we were given a triangle. Now we're still going to be looking at Pythagorean theorem, but we don't have a triangle. We just have the information. So it says, find the missing side of each right triangle. Side C is the hypotenuse. Sides A and B are the legs. Leave your answers in simplest radical form. Remember yesterday we talked about the Pythagorean theorem. As long as C is the hypotenuse, A and B are the legs, I mentioned yesterday, the formula for that is going to be A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. All right, we're finding the missing side. So that means that from the letters A, B, C, you're going to have the information of two letters, but we need to find the third one. For question number 13, I'm solving for A. I have B and C. I don't have A. For question number 14, if you notice, I'm solving for B. For question number 15, I'm going to solve for A. And for question number 16, I'm going to solve for C. Like I said, from the three letters A, B, C, you have information of two of them, but you're missing a third one. Okay, so let's take a look. The way I'm going to write this, I'm going to go A squared plus 4 squared is equal to 16 squared. Now, I don't know what A is, so A squared is still A squared. Now, 4 squared is 16. 16 squared is 256. To get the A squared, this plus 16, let me move it over as a minus 16. So I get that A squared is equal to 240. That means that A is the square root of 240. All right, simplify that radical if you can. So I'm going to think, all right, split 240 into two numbers that multiply equals 240. One of them has to be a perfect square. So I'm going to think 4 times 60. Because the square root of 4 is 2, right? So 4 is a perfect square. Now, square root of 60, I think we can do better. So let me break this as 4 times 15. Now, square root of 15, nothing we can do. I know we can split it as 3 times 5, but neither the 3 nor the 5 are perfect squares. I know the square root of 40 is 2, so that becomes a whole number. This other becomes a 2. So my answer should be 4 radical 15th. Remember how to type that? We talked about that yesterday. So 4 radical 15th. Let's take a look at question number 14. So, matter of fact, let me square each of my numbers to begin with. A squared is 121, right? If A is 100, if A is 11, A squared is 121. Now C squared, that's going to be 257. When we squared a radical, we just get 257, right? So I'm going to write this as 121 plus B squared equals 257. Notice I squared everything already, right? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now to get the B squared by itself, this 121, let me move it over as a minus. So I'm going to have B squared is equal to 136. So that means that B is the square root of 136. Simplify it if possible. 136, let's see. Can we divide this by 4? 136, I know 136 divided by 4 is 34. Okay, so that means that 4 times 34 is that. Because the square root of 4 is perfect, right? Square root of 4 is 2. The square root of 34, nothing I can do. So my answer would be 2 radical 34. The way I'm going to type this, 2 radical 34. Okay, let's take a look at number 15. Let me square this. B squared, like 5 squared is 25, right? Because 5 times 5 is 25. 15 squared is 125. I mean 225. Yeah, 15 times 15, 225. So let me write this as a squared plus 25 equals 225. Right? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. This plus 25, let me move it over as a minus 25. So I have that A squared is equal to 200. That means that A is the square root of 200. Okay, simplify square root of 200. Okay, let's see. I can go 100 times 2, right? Because the square root of 100 is 10. So my answer is 10 radical 2. So I'm just going to type this as 10 radical 2. Let's take a look at here. 10 squared is 100, right? 12 squared is 144. So I'm going to write this as 100 plus 144. It's equal to C squared. Okay, so 100 and 144, we can combine those. That's 244. It's equal to C squared. So the square root of 244 is equal to C. Okay, now let me simplify this. 244 divided by 4. I'm going to check my first perfect square. 244 divided by 4 is 61. So that means that 4 times 61 is 244. I split it because I know the square root of 4 is 2. 61, nothing I can do. So 2 radical 61 is going to be 2. Oh, let me type this in. The way you guys are going to type this will be 2 radical 61. One thing before I move on, because it's easy to square the whole number, right? We saw that. Let me come back here to number 14. It was easy to square 100. I mean 11, right? 11 times 11, it's easy. It's easy to square just a radical. Right? When you square a radical, you just get the number inside. You're going to be dealing sometimes with mixed numbers. Well, most of the time, you're going to be dealing with mixed numbers. Okay, what I mean with that is, what if I had something like 4 radical 5? And you had to square that, right? If I only had the 4, 4 squared would be 16. If I only had the whole number. If I only had the radical, it will be 5. Right? It's easy to square the whole number. It's easy to square the radical. Now, what happens when you have both? Combine them. 16 times 5, it's 80. So 4 radical 5 times 4 radical 5 gives me 80. Again, when you have a mixed number, like a whole number and a radical, first square the whole number, then square the radical, and lastly, combine. 16 times 5 gives me 80. Okay, now you should be good. Any questions, you know how to reach me.